Well, hello there.
Hello, everybody.
Friends, lovers of football. My gosh, the Detroit Lions start their game in half an hour. We're going to try to go quick. Thank you for joining us. This is 5 Minutes with Robert and Amy, Nasir, and you, and we are glad you are here, especially those of you in the chat. Please shout back, call back, feedback to us. Episode 195 of 5 Minutes with Robert and Amy, Nasir, and it is time to respect your fine self. We got to talk about that on this fine day. This fine day, January 28th. Wow, this year is just rolling along. The 28th day of the year, 338 days left to make 2024 your best year yet. Today we're going to talk about how to do that, or at least some of the ways to do that. We got a few things to talk about. So, real quick, 332 days until Christmas, 277 days until Halloween, 144 days until summer in the Northern Hemisphere.
Yes.
Jealous of you people in the Southern Hemisphere, our Australian friends, everybody south of the equator. I hope you're enjoying your fine summer, because it's been cold. 51 days until spring and 17 days until Valentine's Day. Give your lover something special. If you got no lover this year, give yourself something special. Rand's Day is right around the corner. February 2nd, Ayn Rand's birthday, the day when you give a gift to your own fine self. Real quick on this date, okay? 1985. Were the 80s the best decade ever?
Yes, they were.
And especially for music?
Yes, they were.
Damn right. 1985, on this date, the music stars gathered to record We Are the World. We are the world. We are the children.
So quaint.
Man, those were the days. Now you might think, well, why don't they do that anymore? Why don't people like Quincy Jones get Lionel Richie and Michael Jackson and 45 different mega stars together to record a song, and people go out and buy it, spend a few bucks on the 45, and they'll take the profit and feed a bunch of people in Africa. That is how you do it. Charity should be a wholly heartening, not a guilt-laden thing. Well, fortunately, they do still do that kind of thing. I'm not going to read the whole story of We Are the World, but there's a link to it in the show notes. But what's really cool is that nowadays you still get stuff like that. There's a group called Playing for Change. And these are great. These are YouTube videos where an artist, usually an artist associated with an original recording, will play a song, play his role in the song, maybe sing part of it, but then they'll have another musician who wasn't part of the band play a part, and another musician, and another around the world. They add them all up together. People around the world playing songs you know and love in a way that I swear every time I watch one of these videos I get choked up. It just gets me every single time. They had John Paul Jones from Led Zeppelin doing When the Levee Breaks. And, he's being John Paul Jones, but he's got a world of other musicians with him. Jackson Browne does Doctor My Eyes. Just great, great stuff. So, yeah, on this date, when the music stars gathered to record We Are the World, I think, yeah, we do still do that kind of super awesome stuff. Check that link in the description on YouTube if you want to see, and you should, Playing for Change. I mean, We Are the World, as cheesy as some of us thought it was at the time, Cyndi Lauper was involved in it. Huey Lewis was on it. Smokey Robinson, Tina Turner, Paul Simon. I mean, it was just too cool. Love it. Love it. I have happy memories of those kinds of things. I'm going to do a lot of this date. Real quick, happy birthday to Thomas Aquinas. Yes, Thomas of Aquino was born. It's funny because this is one of these apocryphal sometime around this time of the year. So this is considered his birthday in 1225. If you're part of the Ayn Rand Center UK, you need to be participating in the History of Philosophy lectures on Sunday mornings. That's all I'm going to say about that, because it's also the birthday of Jackson Pollock. Actually, Jackson Pollock, born on this date in 1912, only lived 44 years. How much more great splatter art could he have done if Jackson Pollock had been with us longer? Okay, I bring up Jackson Pollock a bit tongue-in-cheek. Obviously, people in our circle, there probably aren't a lot of Jackson Pollock fans. But Jackson Pollock did one thing for which we can all be indebted.
What is that?
See, Christopher Smith says, I like Pollock. Well, there you go. Or maybe he's talking about the kind of fish, like fish and chips. They use pollock instead of cod some places.
It'd be really, really cool. Kind of like as in a performance art sort of thing. And you'd say, well, that's really kind of cool. Say if you were like a bungee jumping painter over a really, really large canvas, like the size of a football field. You got to think real big.
Ooh.
And you come down with some paint.
Has anybody done that yet?
I doubt it.
This could be a brilliant, revolutionary.
Well, I'm going to copyright that along with my trampoline karaoke.
Okay, you heard it first, and it's documented, so you can't steal that idea. Besides trampoline karaoke, which we've already put into practice, karaoke on a trampoline rules. It is awesome. Some of you have been involved in our trampoline karaoke. Okay, here's your hint. What did Jackson Pollock do that was so valuable? He has something in common with the 45th President of the United States, as far as what he did, that we are all indebted to Jackson Pollock for.
We're all looking 45th President of the United States.
Yeah. Well, everybody knows who 45 was because he's trying to be 47. God forbid. Jackson.
Just those people in the UK. And welcome friends from the UK.
Excuse me. First time I've choked on my coffee on the show. Jackson Pollock did us the one irreparable favor of telling the average child, anybody, obviously, absolutely anybody on earth can be an artist. Just like the 45th President of the United States taught us the lesson that any kid, no matter how hopeless, can grow up to be President of the United States. And some people just remind us, anything is possible, even if it shouldn't be. So happy birthday, Jackson Pollock. It's also speaking of people who are still with us, 54th birthday of Maurice Moar Rocca.
Ooh.
Yes.
Love me some Maurice Moar Rocca.
Moar Rocca is awesome. Amy, you've talked about Moar Rocca a lot.
Yeah, I met him a
show.
couple times. His book Mobituaries I really enjoyed it. It's basically short biographies on people, but in a very quirky sort of more interesting, engaging sort of sense of presenting the stories of people's lives.
And if you can't wait for the book, he does a podcast.
Yes.
He's done podcasts on mobituaries, on stories about people. And they're people who passed away, which gives you the title of the show, but that's irrelevant. The way he talks about history, the way he talks about individuals.
Yes. It's really well done, and it's very inspiring, touching, absolutely delightful. No matter what he talks about. I mean, I've listened to these, these podcasts of his, and I've learned about so many people that I would never have had access to or never knew that existed. Some I did know, some I did kind of know, but wasn't that interested. But after he was done with it, you're very much interested in that person. And it's a really lovely way of, presenting the lives of individuals and the kind of importance that they brought to the world and the kind of meanings that they found in their lives. And it's really lovely.
Yes. Outstanding. So yes, happy birthday, Moar Rocca. Just 54 years old, which is good because that means he's going to be with us a good long time. One more birthday. Somebody who I don't know if I've ever actually seen in a movie, but we have so many Lord of the Rings fans in our friends and family that I've got to say happy 42nd birthday to Elijah Wood. There you go for that. Yes. Well, I have a Jackson Pollock quote. He says, "Every good painter paints what he is." Now, there's a great lesson there about sense of life and about what it takes as an artist to succeed. But I don't know if I would have said that if I was Jackson Pollock.
The first thing I thought of was, you are what you eat, from your head down to your feet.
Damn right. Or as Frank Zappa would say, you are what you is. And Jackson Pollock, looking at his art, I can only imagine what he was. But
you could tell what he ate from his art.
Damn right. Now, it is American Immigration Lawyers Association Day of Action. And I'm only going to mention that because there's a link in the show notes. You need to check out the work that Augusta Sid has done. Augusta Vergara Sid, who works for the Ayn Rand Institute on immigration. Enough about that. But yeah, today is the day and you need to check her stuff out. It is National Amy Day.
Is it really?
Yeah, apparently there's an Amy Day.
Oh my gosh.
National Amy Day is celebrated every year on the 28th of January. In modern French, Amy is an English variant of the Old French name Aimée, and Ami was a translation of Amata, a Latin name originating from amatus, which means
beloved.
Beloved. So, some love to all the Amys out there.
Yeah, I really love my name. It's really nice that my mom named me Amy because I really do appreciate it. I love how, if you take the letters of my name, it actually spans the entire alphabet.
A to Y.
A, then the middle M, then all the way to the end is Y, and it's wonderful because...
And if that makes you tired, you have a Z at the end, which is just get some sleep.
Right.
Or something.
But I used to kind of conceptualize my name. Let me know in the chat if you have ever conceptualized your name or had associations with your name. I've always been very partial to other Amy's. I'm really biased. Anybody named Amy or something similar to that name. And so it's a lovely name. And then I found Ayn Rand and I'm like, oh, there she's got a and a Y, just like me. So
it's very close to Amy.
Nice.
That's right. And Amy's very close to Ayn. I've got to give a shout out to Quint Cordair Fine Art. Linda Cordair is in the chat, and she just mentioned that she just sent Augusta a copy of Quint's poem at last.
Nice.
Showing the Statue of Liberty. I can't imagine that you could send anything better to somebody involved in the fight for open immigration. Thank you for that, Linda.
Yes.
That is super sweet. And the link is there, folks. You may want to consider, if you haven't already, getting a copy of that poem mounted in just that way with that picture of the Statue of Liberty. Thank you, Linda. One more thing on this date. Again, we're going to try to go quick. There's a game coming up. Also, Yarns at 7 o'clock. I don't know how he's going to compete with the Detroit Lions, but we'll see how that goes. It is, I don't know if you can tell what this is. It's not the usual style. What would you think that is? No, it's not a sex toy. I know the chat is already going. No, okay. How about this one? This one, maybe you can tell. It is National Kazoo Day.
Yes.
Can you believe that there's a National Kazoo Day? Well, I can.
And then it falls on the same as National Amy Day.
And it falls on the day of National Amy Day. It also falls on the day of our friend Rebecca's birthday.
Oh, wonderful.
So which one of these are you more comfortable
this
playing?
one, because I'm wearing green.
All right. Okay, well, I need kazoo practice, but the great thing about a kazoo is anybody can play it. If you don't have a kazoo, I've linked 2 instructions on how to take a plain old plastic comb and a bit of wax paper and make your own kazoo. Everybody have a great National Kazoo Day. I told you, anybody can be president. Jackson Pollock showed us anybody can be an artist. Obviously, with a kazoo, anybody can be a musician. We've had episodes where I've told you people, sing more. Sing in the shower, sing in your car if you have to, but sing more.
Absolutely.
Well, get a kazoo and do the same thing. Real quick, what are we watching or listening to this week? Well, I could tell you the story of the reality show. An episode that I did was that just day before yesterday, and it's already got 13,000 views. Well, there were 4 of us on the panel. It wasn't just me. But thousands and thousands of views already. I could tell you about Yaron Brooks' lecture that he gave this week, but there were actually 3 of them, 2 of which we were there in person for.
Yes.
I don't know, maybe we should do that real quick. U of M, University of Michigan, Morality of Capitalism, speaking before a group of, this is great, young Americans. It wasn't the Young Americans for Freedom, the libertarians.
No.
It was Young American, was it Freedom?
Well, yes.
Young American Conservatives.
It was Young Americans for Freedom, which is a conservative organization.
Right, as opposed to the libertarians.
On their agenda for their next meeting was about how fetuses are people.
They're going to watch What is a Woman?
What is a Woman?
The Matt Walsh, the execrable.
Yeah, real great.
Matt Walsh may be my least favorite person on the planet. I always say he's got the Midas touch. Everything he touches turns into a muffler. He's horrible. He's horrible in every... Anyway, they're watching that movie next week. So it was great that Yaron spoke to this group.
Yes. Now, he didn't speak about abortion. He spoke about...
Not until the Q&A.
No, he didn't even mention it in the Q&A. He mentioned it with regard to... he talked about religion and morality, basically.
Good talk. And you're right. He did keep... The anti-conservative stuff was very tiny, little bit, well-spoken, good thing. Well, he also spoke to the HFA, the Henry Ford Academy.
Ooh, yes.
Wow. Kids, high school kids, on finance and individualism.
Yeah, that's not public or anything like that, but we do... it was wonderful. Oh, my gosh. Okay, can I just say...
What can you say?
I was super impressed. I was
what?
so impressed because all Yaron Brook knew about that he was going to be talking about was finance. And now, he has run a hedge fund. He actually had a degree in finance in some way. He actually worked for a financial company for a long time. So he does know a lot about it. But he was able to, this is a high school... This is a charter school. Okay, so some of the kids are going to be a little bit less than enthusiastic, and some are going to be very enthusiastic. We had a good mix, and we had kids. The kids, he actually got them so engaged in the ideas of compound interest, saving your money, how to start a business, the kinds of the kinds of basic government you can have, either one that's actually promoting individual rights and not getting involved in business, or they called I think the term that we used was command economy, which the kids already knew what that meant.
Because Sean Albert is their teacher, who we've interviewed on this show before. Sean Albert, the objectivist and high school teacher.
Oh, so great.
So yeah, they were receptive in a way you wouldn't necessarily expect. And this was not a private school, it's a charter school. So if you walked into this auditorium and saw the kids, it was the usual group you would expect to see in a public high school. Just all attitudes, all styles, all races, and some people very focused and other people staring at their phone. It was like a high school class, except... You're right. He had them engaged.
They didn't want to stop asking him questions.
Now, Christopher Smith in the chat is reminding us Yaron Brook is a professor of finance.
Right.
So, yes, he knows his stuff. But to be able to talk to kids about it in a way that got them.
In a way that he started out, at their level and kind of built up. And these kids were very smart. They asked him about Bitcoin, NFTs, how to become a billionaire if you're born in middle class. And, and of course, he talked about the three examples, which are Jeff Bezos, Bill Gates, and Steve Jobs. So that was really good. He kind of put it all together off the cuff, and he did it very, very well. He was a very engaging speaker, and if anybody has ever seen him talk, he's pretty dynamic. He moves around on stage and all of that. And he really, really reaches out to the audience and gets people engaged. So... it was a great thing. And on top of that, the principal and superintendent, she really enjoyed his talk. There was some not controversy, but there was some uncertainty about whether or not HFA would have allowed him to talk because he is a controversial figure. And, so I was just really pleased as punch and really proud of my organization. Because HFA is part of our branding under marketing. It's part of the Henry Ford, so it's wonderful.
Yes. So good stuff. It was recorded, but I can't share that publicly.
No, it's private.
If somebody wants to see it badly enough, I might be able to share the unlisted link, but you'd have to ask me privately about that. Don't say anything public about it.
Yeah, $500.
Yeah. And the last thing I have listed under what are we watching, enjoying, or shamelessly self-promoting this week, there was a post about woke in the Pagan memes threads on Facebook by Amy Nasir. And I have linked to that because I think it's worth seeing, to hear Amy say what Amy said in this group.
I got this here. Okay,
I could read it if you like, or maybe you want to read it yourself.
I can read it. So the context here is that there was a meme that was placed up on a group on Facebook called Pagan Memes. Fun pagan memes. However,
now to a lot of you out there, pagan just means not religious.
Yeah.
To some people, it means more than that. It's heavily weighted with a lot of a combination of woo and leftism.
Right. But I was actually kind of surprised that somebody posted this, number one. Well, I'm not too surprised. But second of all, that there were some of the people, the comments, who were actually very articulate in understanding that what was being presented in this meme wasn't quite right.
Now, it starts off with a post by Lauren Boebert, who hopefully you have no idea who that is. I've only got a rough idea. But she posted on the socials, well, one thing you can be sure of, I'll never go woke.
Well, and first of all, before we get into this, the word woke, I don't even try to use it anymore because it's so nondescriptive. It's poison. It's got so much baggage to it, but so much baggage to it.
Yeah.
And it's not a very accurate term for anything. So, and then this one replying to Lauren Boebert.
And both of these, the first comment and the reply, are put in there like a meme in a graphic.
It's sort of like a Twitter screenshot.
Right.
That's what it is. So the reply is, I'm sure of that. To be woke requires awareness, an enlightened mind, exposure to different cultures and different types of people. It requires maturity to realize that not everyone looks like you or thinks like you, and that's okay. Woke is an antonym of ignorance.
Now, I don't mind seeing people like Lauren Boebert get slapped down a bit, but, well, I wasn't there to answer that person's description, person's answer.
Think of that answer.
Yeah.
On the face of it, there's nothing wrong with this. Except
that's not what woke means in practice.
What woke means. So, in practice, yes, absolutely right. This is what I wrote in response. Sadly, it's not always defined this way. It can also mean that if you don't want to defund the police, morally condemn people for getting pronouns wrong on accident, use trauma as a social and moral currency in relationships, allow trans women in women's sports and women's prison, support the oppressor-oppressed worldview, etc. So if you don't want to do all of those things, then you are an evil, racist, bigoted, transphobe TERF who deserves to be doxxed and fired. Woke can be as religiously intolerant as some Christians are about abortion. Of course, when it comes to all inquisitions against blasphemy and heresy, you're going to get pushback and unintended consequences. So I hope woke evolves and grows into the definition above, but it hasn't yet.
No. And the signs aren't good. But it reminds me of, Ayn Rand used to say about the environmentalists, it may well be that they'll outsmart themselves in that people will take their warnings seriously and they'll just, clean up the pollution, clean up the trash on the sides of the roads, do a little better job, and then dismiss everything else they have to say. And that's as you say, that's what I hope would happen to woke, is that it would become mature and all of the vicious parts of it would just not get taken seriously by anybody and let go.
So
that was a great answer. The link is in the show notes.
I also want to add to, and this there's more conversation here. Somebody actually does answer me, assumes that that I think that transgender or trans women let's see here. If you think transgender belong that they belong in men's prison instead of women's prison. And so my response to that was, if a trans woman murdered, maimed, raped someone, why would we want them to not be in prison? First of all, as far as making the assumption that it would be dangerous or unfair for a trans woman criminal to be in prison with men, you might want to consider advocating for special circumstances for some individuals. Start a nonprofit yourself. I see that your version of woke is to immediately assume the worst of everyone around you because, she had called me evil. I hope, and then I said, I hope you can grow out of that someday. And this is something that's interesting to me, because a lot of, it is a religion. Just as some Christians, if they see that you are pro-abortion, they'll say evil, evil, heresy, blasphemy. And it's so well, I guess the best word is intolerant, but it is so, people just jump to conclusions, and then they just assume the worst of those people around them. And it's truly, this is what I found. I thought to myself, well, what's missing here? You've got people who are, throwing around the word evil, morally condemning other people all the time. But I don't see anybody actually trying to solve problems. So so she responded to me a little bit nicer when I presented that to her, that, if you really want to advocate for trans women who are going to men's prisons, you think that's a worthwhile cause, create your own organization and solve the problem. Or you can come up with some kind of organization that will keep trans women out of jail in the first place. So there's all sorts of things here. And instead of trying to focus on problem solving, they're focusing on creating more problems, because you're not going to solve any problems if you're just calling everybody around you evil. I mean, it's truly bizarre to me that people are locked into that mode of behavior. But it's interesting.
Yeah, to steal a line from the Mandalorian series, this is not the way. So that was an interesting exchange, and I thought I should share that with you, and so I did. And what got me thinking about all of this stuff about what you can grow up to be, and a lot of the topics we've talked about before, but there was a post. There was a post on my Facebook wall. I shared, and I ended up having to delete it and re-add it because the meme associated with it was so bad. But let me just read this. Eastern philosophy says, well, there is no self. And science agrees. Why are you unhappy? Because 99.9% of everything you think and everything you do is for yourself. And there isn't one. Now, somebody asked me, why are you sharing this? And the answer is, I see this everywhere and all the time in intellectual circles. My response to it, of course, was, if there's no me, if there's no self, then who the hell is this article for? and who's this advice to deny the self for?
Who is science? Who's this thing called science?
Well, science is the thing that happens.
Science agrees.
Happens. Part of understanding this is to understand that a lot of these proponents are also anti-free will. Mm. So science is just something that happens when people do the things they do because of all of the previous reasons they did all the things they did in this billiard ball type universe they believe in. And so, I was actually asked, well, why is this worth paying attention to? So let me tell you why I think this is worth paying attention to. I gave the person who asked me that question 4 different reasons, and there are many more. And number one is because so many people, including people who are very reasonable in other ways, take these ideas seriously. And here I've got to say Sam Harris, who has been so good lately, especially on the war in the Middle East, that it frustrates me that he's not better when it comes to issues like this. He has been really, really good, really since October 7th. And yet, believing the kinds of things he does about the self, about identity, about free will, undercuts the great arguments that he makes, even though he doesn't explicitly tie them together. Number 2, because people we know personally, there are people we value. People in my life can fall prey to this stuff, and they do in ways that are not this explicit. And that leads to number 3, because the answers are not easy. They're not obvious once you get into the actual reasons these people say the things they say. Yes, it's very easy for me to put a cutting reply out there and say, well, if there is no self, who do you think you're talking to? And who the hell are you, or what are you talking? And
Yeah.
number 4, because we can express and reaffirm important truths by contrast. And that's really where I found myself getting the meat and the potatoes and the value and the stuff out of this. Because we can express and reaffirm important concepts by contrast. And that is what I want for each of you. I want you to respect. In fact, that's my post-it note for the week. I'll get this out early. Although we're not going to go long. The game is starting. My post-it note for the week, real quick, says respect yourself. No, not respect yourself. Although I want that too. Respect yourself. And this is one of those 3 worders where every single word in there has value for you. Realize what it means to respect yourself. What respect means, to show some degree of decorum and value. Treat yourself as well as you would treat somebody else that you respect. And number 2, your nature. I love Christopher Hitchens' line, and it was sad when he was passing away. He said it was terrible to be reminded in such a visceral fashion that you don't just have a body, you are a body. And he wasn't saying we're just stuff. He was saying that we're an integrated whole. Man is an integrated entity of mind and body. And the reason why people like Sam Harris and the other Eastern mystics who, well, some of them are just horrible people, but the better people latch onto this stuff is because they disintegrate, because they alienate. They don't have the integrating passion that, for example, objectivists do. They engage in detachment. They engage in alienation. They alienate from themselves, from their body. I wish my body was different. My body feels like... It's not me. My body's making me, the real me, the guy behind the steering wheel, feel... No. An integrated person realizes I am my body. I am my mind. I am my emotions. I am my imagination. I am the totality of that. And that leaves no room for Sam Harris or anybody else to say, well, there really is no self. The self is an illusion. An illusion to who? Who's getting the illusion? Who's making the mistake?
Right.
If there is no self. And then finally, the third word of respect, yourself, is to realize that you are a self. And we can get into radical ownership. You own your life and you steer your life and you need to direct your life. And we'll do that all another time. But I think those 3 words say it all. I've linked to an article on how to regain your self-respect and why it matters. I won't even get into that right now. It's on a psychology website that's pretty good. Take a look at that. But that's what I've been thinking about.
You know, so are we going until 7? Or
No.
are you... No?
No, we're doing a short show. I promised a short show. We'll do it. Unless you can say whatever you want to say. I want to give one example of this, though, and why this matters. I've got a list of reasons this matters. Part of it is if you don't respect yourself, ain't nobody gonna give a good cahoot. Now, respect yourself. Those are the lyrics. That's silly. But it's true. If you don't respect yourself, you know, we know Ayn Rand's perspective. If you don't love yourself, you can't love anybody else. Well, if you don't respect yourself, respect your values, respect your dignity, and respect just your nature, you can't respect anybody else. Well, Amy, where did we recently see an example of somebody who obviously didn't respect himself? Well, you've got show and tell there, and I think that relates.
Okay. Well, I mean, okay, so we went out last night to kind of a small club, a place called Outer Limits in Hamtramck within Detroit.
If you've seen my pictures on Facebook, facebook.com/Robert Nasir, you know this is a hoopty club. This is a small club.
But it's kind of cool. It's cool.
Small clubs.
It's kind of cool. And they've got like their own, what do you call it? Their recording studio in it. And and they've got their own little label going on and everything. It's really kind of cool.
Yeah, I liked it. I thought it was cool.
I really liked it. And so the first band went on. We really liked it. Actually, the bassist in that band was the guitarist in the third band. But it's a long story. But it was a good night.
First band is a local band.
Yeah.
They just celebrated 5 years together. The band is called Macho. Macho Detroit. And Macho is fronted by a woman. In fact, their drummer is also a woman. Half 2 guys, 2 gals. Yep. It was cool. It was a cool band. So check out Macho. Chaos Mas Macho.
Yeah, they
Pineapple or knife? Laurie Anderson fans will know that one. But
You'll have
Macho
to
was
fill
cool.
me in on that. I'm usually up on Laurie Anderson and avant-garde 80s music.
Whenever I hear macho, I always think, ¿Qué es más macho? Look up the Laurie Anderson song "Smoke Rings" and you'll know what I'm talking about.
Oh, okay. Maybe I've only heard it once.
Yes.
So anyway, long
So
story
macho
short.
was cool.
Yeah. So
Dangerous Chairs,
Dangerous Chairs. Okay. I mean, if you like,
quirky Chicago rock band.
Kind
This
of,
was a punk rock night, and they weren't really punk rock.
yeah, they were a little bit more Pearl Jam than punk rock. That's
Yeah.
what I would say.
Yeah.
And then unfortunately, there was a band down the street at another place called Smalls. It's called Smalls in a small club.
Yeah.
Well,
If you're local, if you're Motown, you know Smalls.
well, Suicide Machine and one of my favorites, Negative Approach, who are not really negative, actually. They're a little bit more straight edge hardcore band. Well, there were people down there who came to about like after midnight. That's when Norcos y Horchata started playing.
Norcos y Horchata.
Yeah, Norcos y Horchata. Normalize that name.
You might show your
your
prop
Here,
there.
here's the album,
Your most recent album,
and you can see the back here. There they are.
Forever Disheveled is the name of the album.
Disheveled.
Good name for a punk rock
But
band.
it also, reminds me of our Ron Toole and the Capitalists. True Tales of Dereliction is our album.
Although our group shot was better than theirs.
Yeah.
It's intentionally funny because the
It's
bass
funny,
player's
'cause-
head is cut off.
Yeah, that's the bass player. You're right.
And it
So-
was fun last night too because they weren't a 3-piece; they were a 4-piece.
Yeah.
And it turned out it was the drummer of Macho who came up front and played rhythm guitar
Yeah.
for Norcos y Horchata.
Yeah. It's really cool.
It was
Unfortunately,
cool until
like
after the first song or two.
it was a few songs in, and there was this I tell you, okay, Suicide Machine, Negative Approach got out, and people were starting to come over to Outer Limits, and what do you know, a bunch of old, like middle-aged, kind of grunty looking ex-con skinheads with neck tattoos decide to pay a visit, and this one guy was, I'm telling you, was 7 foot tall.
Easily.
The guy was like Mongo. Mongo is just a pawn in the game of life. Mongo.
And he was not a skinny 7 foot tall guy. He had the girth to match the height.
I don't know. For all I know, this guy might be a really nice person. I just have no idea. But he was
Well.
obviously very inebriated, along with his 2 other really big friends. And this is a small club.
So they
is like-
cleared away the tables, including the one we were sitting in order to make room for the mosh pit in front of the stage. But it wasn't typical slam dancing.
No, it was more of like the 3 guys would get together and they would like latch onto each other, like hold each other, and they would just kind of like steamroll over people, squish to the left, squish to the right.
Yeah,
I
and
mean,
they
it was
weren't even
crazy.
slamming; they were just shoving people out,
just-
just rolling around this guy's 7 feet tall. He probably weighs 300 pounds. And muscular, and he's got all the
Over-
accoutrements,
over
the neck
300
tattoo,
pounds.
and all of that too.
Meat.
And
the
he's
guy
just pushing, not even pushing, just I likened it
Mongo
to
bash.
I likened it to
A
Hugo.
smash.
Hugo's 93. Think of the ship rolling around the waters, and the cannon comes loose and destroys the ship just because it's a loose cannon. And that's what this was. So yeah, we actually left after 4 or 5 songs.
Yeah. After I kept thinking to myself, okay, Amy, this guy's right next to you. He's not moving away from you. I'm pushed up against the wall basically at this point, and his elbow, I'm kid you not, this man's elbow was right at down like that, was at eye level to me, and I thought, do I really want to get my glasses smashed by this man's elbow? And so I looked at Robert and I'm like,
And we did that. For those of you listening to the audio version, these are gestures of, we're leaving now.
and we bolted out the door. And
I did offer to Amy that I would beat him up for her, which, would have resulted in my death. But
I thought, and before he was bashing like left and right, The guy got up on stage, 7-foot tall guy. And he tried to get the people in front of him. He threw himself into the audience trying to get people
Did he try to stage dive?
Yes, he did.
The
He
guy,
was trying to do crowd surfing. I'm like...
The guy weighed he had to weigh at least 300, maybe 350.
It was not right. And I thought to myself, I'm not going to stick around to try to find out.
Yeah. So
I thought of Dirty Harry, a man's got to know his limitations. And I'm like, we're getting out of here.
It's the man who didn't know his limitations. As I say, if you don't respect yourself, you can't respect anybody else. Conversely, I can't imagine this guy had much self-respect.
Yeah.
And I know it was punk rock. In punk rock, you act in outrageous ways. You let feelings that wouldn't necessarily lead to outrageous behavior, but this went across any conceivable limits.
With that, I just need to recite some lyrics from the Rollins Band. Henry Rollins of Black Flag, and then he formed his own band. But he has some great lyrics. There's a song called Low Self-Opinion, talking about the self, talking about self-esteem. And so the lyrics are, the hatred you project does nothing to protect you. You leave yourself so exposed. You want to open up when someone says lighten up. You find all your doors closed. Get yourself a break from self-rejection. Try some introspection, and you just might find it's not so bad in any way. At the end of the day, all you have is yourself and your mind. That really affected me when I was a teenager. I just love those lyrics. The idea of self-esteem, having a self, understanding what your standards are, being able to open yourself up to the world, being able to see yourself in a situation where you're actually part of the world, and that you can go out there and you can attain your values. You need a self for that. Without the concept of a self, you're basically destroying values, because it is ourselves as individual human beings who can actually achieve that and have that moral agency, have that moral ambition to go out and attain values. So yeah, whenever I see something like that, there is no self. Self is just an illusion. It is Ivy Starnes. It is the Starnes family and the siblings, and it is dangerous.
Now, Henry Rollins, in many ways, gets it right, as he often does. But in the chat, the author Jim Ashley, does ask, well, what fictional characters in literature, drama, and film, and what people in real life would you say exemplify genuine respect for self? And I think Jim might be asking that question knowing that we've recently read his post on contrasting Cyrano de Bergerac.
That's always fun to do.
Yeah. And so there's your example of genuine respect for self. I can't think of a more archetypical example than that. And there are ways in which we can, criticize what a character like Cyrano does, in terms of his own personal flaw. And his flaw isn't his physical flaw, but what he does about it and what it keeps him from doing. But the contrast that Jim makes is to Don Quixote. Don Quixote representing the rationalist, as opposed to Sancho Panza, then, who becomes the empiricist, which sets your idealist against your I was going to say cynic, but that's not even the right word. What am I looking for? Well, you get the idea. It's a good essay worth reading on Facebook. Look up Jim Ashley if you don't already follow his work, and he will tell you about that. But that would be my answer to that. We need more Cyranos. We need more people with that kind of self-respect.
Yes.
Or more Howard Rourkes, people for whom self-respect is so visceral that it's not an issue. Cyrano has to go to extreme steps in the name of protecting his good name. Mm-hmm. Howard Rourke couldn't care less. he's got bigger fish to fry than worrying about who's insulting him or attacking him. So
yeah, we've talked about that before, the difference between Howard Rourke and Cyrano de Bergerac and with their approaches.
And I think either one of those is valid. There are contexts in which you need to fight, and there are contexts in which, no, it's not my battle. There's no reason for me to do that. So both good. Admire both. They're my two favorite fictional heroes.
Yeah, well, I mean, historically, there is a big difference between the time periods that Cyrano and Howard Rourke lived.
True that.
And the kind of society in which they lived, and people respecting others' individual rights and not resorting to violence. Yeah, so I think, despite the kind of, when I first read The Fountainhead, I was really sad for Howard Rourke, and I thought, God, what an awful world. Is this dystopian, or what is it exactly? And I thought, afterwards, after reading it so many times, I realized that, no, there's freedom of speech, there's freedom of the press, there's... Yeah, I mean, it
makes me think of the conversation between Mike and Stephen Mallory toward the end of the novel. And, Mike is saying, I think about, or Stephen Mallory is saying, there are things that used to drive me crazy, and I only realized later that none of it really mattered in regard to Howard Rourke's fight. And that is, the point I hope that we all get to, of realizing that, yeah, we've got to fight, and yeah, tragic things will happen, and yeah, we can't keep our mouths shut. Think of the essay, What Can One Do? When bad things are happening, but in the long run, we never had to take any of it seriously, did we? And when Ayn Rand says that, by seriously, she means metaphysically. She means as if it matters, as if it should be allowed to touch you in your best moments.
Right. Yeah, you should have a primacy of existence perspective on life.
Yes, because that's what it means to respect yourself. Folks, we went a little bit long. I know the game has already started. Some of you Lions fans... you don't laugh. There are Lions.
Tons of Lions
this
fans
year,
now,
the Lions have been
winning.
The Lions have never won a Super Bowl. They won championships back before there was a Super Bowl, but they've never actually won a Super Bowl. So this is important.
It is.
The people are saying, yeah, but their odds against the 49ers are, it's not good. They're not going to be in the Super Bowl. It could happen. This is the year it very well could happen that they are at least in the Super Bowl.
Yeah,
and may even win it.
That'd be great.
We're going to let you go.
Before we do,
Yes.
Quint Cordair of Quint Cordair Fine Art in the chat on YouTube says, never fight unless you have to, but when it is time to fight, you fight like you're the third monkey on the ramp to Noah's Ark. And brother, it is starting to rain.
Yeah, I think I have seen that quote before from that source. And yeah, exactly. Fight when you got to fight. And that's the only time you should fight. And, I get it. That takes a certain amount of fighting spirit to keep up the training, to be ready for when you've got to fight. I get it. It's not as simple as just keep smiling, and I wouldn't want to be accused of having that Pollyanna-ish attitude. But yeah, at some point, you gotta go to what matters.
Yes.
So folks, respect yourselves. We're going to try to do that. We're going to be making some changes over the next couple of weeks in our personal lives, but we'll share some of that with you. Self-improvement, good things are coming. In the meantime, thank you for joining us. This has been 5 Minutes with Robert and Amy Nasir, a few times over. And if you have any suggestions for future episodes, please do share them with us. Please continue to support the show. Thank you to the patrons, those of you who are on our Patreon. See the Patreon and PayPal links at robertnasir.com. And that's it. I'm going to let you go. Go watch the game. I'm going to go see what the score is, if anybody has scored in these first 20 minutes. Hopefully the Lions have. The 49ers have not. And those of you who aren't into football, Yarn Brook starts in 10 minutes. We'll let you go for that as well. Thank you for joining us. As always, we wish you every success that you, and I do mean you, the person I'm pointing my finger at, so richly deserve. How do I know you deserve it? Man, you deserve it many times over. If you are older than 10 years old and you're still alive, you have earned that right. Because life is hard, and you have made it this far. Congratulations. Thank you for joining us. We wish you success. We wish you flourishing. We wish you lots of money. Just arbitrarily, because I never really throw that in, but I like money. I have a little. I keep it in a jar above the refrigerator. And as always, we wish you love.
Salut.